My overheard me saying, "He's just a stepping stone. I'll leave him once the wedding is." My name's Kelsey. I'm 28, and up until 2 months ago, I was engaged to Daniel, 31. We'd been together for 3 years, and for a while, things were good. He's a hard worker, runs his own food truck business, and he's always been sweet to me. But over time, I started to feel stuck, like I was settling for a life I didn't really want. Daniel's food truck business is fine, but it's not exactly glamorous. I wanted more. I wanted the kind of life where I didn't have to worry about money, where I could travel, wear nice clothes, and not feel embarrassed when people asked what I did for a living. So, I made a plan. I thought, if I'm going to be in this relationship for a little while longer, I might as well get something out of it. Daniel was so eager to give me the wedding of my dreams, and I figured, why not? He was willing to spend $75,000 on the wedding, and I thought, this is my chance. I started talking to my friends, Paisley and Isabella, about it. We vented. We laughed. I called Daniel a stepping stone. I said I'd give it a year after the wedding, then move on. I told them that I had found someone better at the country club where we were having the reception. I didn't think Daniel would ever find out. He was always so trusting, so oblivious. I was playing the part of the perfect, planning every detail of the wedding, and he was happily footing the bill. I even started thinking about how I could use the wedding to launch my influencer career. The photos, the venue, the whole aesthetic, it was all part of my plan. But then, everything blew up in my face. That day at the BBQ, Daniel overheard me talking to Paisley and Isabella. I didn't know he was listening. I didn't think he'd ever suspect anything, but he did. And instead of confronting me, he played along. He acted like everything was fine, like he was still the doting. Meanwhile, he was secretly documenting everything, our conversations, my texts, even my diary. The wedding was supposed to be my big moment. I had the dress, the venue, everything. But instead of walking down the aisle, I was left standing there, humiliated, in front of everyone I knew. Daniel sent out a video of me and my friends talking about our plans. My parents are furious, my friends have turned on me, and my reputation is ruined. Now, I'm left with nothing. My parents are drowning in debt because of the wedding expenses. My job is gone, and my so-called friends have abandoned me. I've lost everything, my future, my dignity. Hey Reddit, I've been a long-time lurker, but I finally have something to share. I'm using a throwaway because my ex-wife is active on Reddit, and I don't want her to find this. This is my side of the story of how I finally stood up for myself after years of being taken for granted. My name is Jack. I'm 26, and until recently I was married to Lisa, who's 24. We've known each other since college and were married for 3 years. I never thought things would end this way, but looking back, I guess the signs were always there. I just didn't want to see them. Lisa and I were opposites in many ways. She was the life of the party, outgoing, social, and always surrounded by friends. I, on the other hand, am an introvert. I prefer quiet nights at home with a book or a movie. But I loved Lisa, and I wanted her to be happy. So, I supported her social life, even though it wasn't my thing. I thought that's what love was, sacrificing for the person you care about. Over time, I started doing more and more to make her happy. I'd wake up early to bring her favorite coffee, cancel my plans to be with her when she was feeling down, and prioritize her needs above my own. I thought I was being a good husband. I thought she appreciated it, but I was wrong. Lisa started pulling away. She said she wanted to be a stay-at-home wife, even though we didn't have kids. I agreed because I wanted her to be happy, but then she started slacking off. The house was always a mess, and there was never dinner ready when I got home from work. I didn't complain. I just picked up the slack, cooking, cleaning, doing it all. I thought I was being supportive, but Lisa saw it as weakness. She started mocking me behind my back, making jokes about me to her friends. I overheard her once, laughing about how I'd do anything for her, how I was whipped. It hurt, but I didn't say anything. I just kept trying harder, thinking if I loved her enough, she'd see how much I cared. But the more I tried, the more she pushed me away. She started hanging out with her friends more, flirting with other guys, and enjoying the attention. I noticed, but I didn't say anything. I thought if I just kept loving her, she'd come back to me. The final straw came at a neighborhood party. Lisa was with her friends, and I was manning the grill, like I always did. I didn't mind. I liked being useful. But then I overheard her talking about me. She was laughing, telling her friends how I never said no, how I was always willing to do whatever she asked. They were all laughing, making jokes about how whipped I was. I stood there, frozen. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't just a private conversation, this was in front of everyone. I felt humiliated, disrespected, and, for the first time, angry. I walked over to the table where they were sitting and told Lisa we needed to talk. She looked surprised but followed me. The party continued around us, but I didn't care. I looked her in the eye and told her I was done. I'm tired of being disrespected, I said. By you, by your friends, by everyone. I'm leaving, and you're not coming back to our home. She stared at me, stunned. I didn't wait for a response. I turned and walked out. When I got home, I started packing her things. She followed me, begging me to stop, crying and pleading. But I was done. I had given her everything, my love, my time, my energy, and She had thrown it all away. I told her to leave, and when she refused, I threatened to call the police. She finally left, carrying what she could. I felt a mix of emotions: relief, sadness, anger, but mostly, I felt free. For the first time in years, I wasn't trying to please someone who didn't appreciate me. The divorce is finalized. The house was always mine, even before we got married, so she didn't have a claim to it. I gave her a bit of alimony, but it wasn't much. We didn't have kids, so there was no custody battle. Lisa has tried reaching out a few times, but I'm done. I've moved on. I'm focusing on myself, my work, my hobbies, my peace of mind. I've reconnected with old friends who had distanced themselves from me because of Lisa. They've been supportive, and it's been nice to have people in my life who respect me. I've also started therapy, which has been incredibly helpful. It's given me the tools to understand why I stayed in such a toxic relationship for so long and how to avoid making the same mistakes in the future. Here's the kicker. Lisa's friends, the ones who used to mock me, are now trying to get with me. It's almost funny. They've been reaching out, flirting, and trying to get my attention. But I'm not interested. I've seen their true colors and I don't want anything to do with them. It's been a long journey, but I'm in a much better place now. I'm happier, healthier, and finally living for myself. To anyone out there who's in a similar situation, my advice is simple. Know your worth. Don't let anyone disrespect you or take you for granted. Love should be a partnership, not a one-sided sacrifice. I overheard my girlfriend's shocking secret. What I did next will blow your mind. I'm 29 years old, and my name is Daniel. For the past 4 years, I've been in a relationship with Mia, a 27-year-old freelance writer with a passion for literature and a knack for storytelling. We lived together in a modest apartment in the city, a place that felt like home until it didn't. I worked as a graphic designer for a mid-sized agency, a job that demanded long hours and creative energy. Mia was pursuing her master's degree in literature while freelancing for various publications. Our lives were busy, but I thought we were happy. At least, I thought I was happy. That was before last Thursday. It was a rare day when I left work early. My boss had canceled a client meeting, and I decided to surprise Mia with dinner from her favorite Italian restaurant. I thought it would be a nice gesture after weeks of us both being buried in work and stress. When I got home, I noticed the door was slightly ajar. My stomach dropped. I pushed it open quietly and heard voices, Mia's and a man's. At first I thought it might be one of her friends or a colleague, but then I heard her laugh, a sharp, mocking laugh I didn't recognize. "He's so oblivious," she said. "He's always working, never pays attention. It's almost too easy." I froze. My heart pounded so hard I thought they'd hear it. The man chuckled. "Well, as long as he doesn't find out, right?" "Exactly," Mia replied. "Even if he did, I could talk my way out of it. He'd believe anything I say." I stood there, clutching the takeout bag, my knuckles white. I wanted to storm in, scream, demand answers, but I couldn't move. Instead, I turned around and left, closing the door softly behind me. I got in my car and drove aimlessly, my hands shaking on the wheel. I didn't know where I was going, I just knew I couldn't stay there. The image of Mia laughing, mocking me, played on a loop in my mind. I ended up at my best friend's place. Mark had been my rock since college, and I knew he'd understand. When I walked in, he took one look at my face and didn't ask questions. He just handed me a beer and let me sit in silence. The next morning, I blocked Mia on everything: phone, social media, email. I didn't want to hear her excuses. I wanted her to feel the same confusion and pain I felt when I realized the person I loved had been lying to me. For days, she tried to reach me. Calls, texts, messages, through mutual friends. She even showed up at my office. But I ignored her. I didn't want to hear her apologies or explanations. I already knew the truth. A week later, I found out who the guy was. His name was Jake, and he wasn't just some random stranger. He was a client Mia had been working with. I'd met him once before at a networking event, but I never thought much of it. Now it all made sense. I thought about confronting Jake, but I realized it wasn't worth it. Instead, I focused on moving on. I threw myself into my work, reconnected with friends, and started therapy to process everything. Mia didn't give up easily. She showed up at Mark's place one evening, begging to talk. She looked like a mess mascara smeared, eyes red from crying. "Please," she said, her voice trembling. "Let me explain. It wasn't what you think." I cut her off. "I heard everything, Mia. I was there." Her face went pale. She tried to argue, to downplay what had happened, but I wasn't having it. "We're done," I said, opening the door. "There's nothing left to say." She broke down in tears, but I didn't feel sorry for her. I felt nothing. After that, Mia stopped trying to contact me. I heard through mutual friends that she and Jake didn't last long. Apparently, he had a girlfriend too, and the whole thing blew up in their faces. As for me, I focused on rebuilding my life. I took up new hobbies, traveled, and even started dating again, slowly, cautiously. It wasn't easy, but I learned to trust myself again. The betrayal hurt, but it also taught me something important. I deserve better. I won't let anyone treat me like that again. Months later, I found myself in a better place. I had a new apartment, a promotion at work, and a renewed sense of self-worth. I still thought about Mia sometimes, but the pain had dulled. I met someone newer, kind, genuine person who made me feel valued and respected. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that was enough. Looking back, I realized that walking away silently was the best decision I could have made. It wasn't about revenge or drama, it was about self, and in the end, that's what mattered. I made my best friend break up with her, then I married him. It started innocently enough. I never intended for it to go this far. I was just looking out for my best friend. I've known her since high school, and over the years, we'd shared everything: our dreams, our fears, and our hearts. So when she started dating Matt, I was there cheering her on. Matt was great. He was kind, funny, and so obviously in love with Emma. They seemed perfect for each other, and I couldn't have been happier for her. But over time, something began to change. I couldn't put my finger on it at first, but I could feel it in the air when we hung out together. Emma's energy was different, distant even. She wasn't as excited about their wedding planning, and she started to confide in me more than usual. Not about Matt's good qualities, but about how she felt suffocated by their relationship. She'd call me late at night, telling me that she wasn't sure she could go through with it. I always reassured her, telling her that it was normal to have doubts before such a big decision. But I could see it in her eyes every time we met. She wasn't happy. I hated to admit it, but she wasn't in love with him anymore. But she couldn't see it. She felt guilty, like she was letting Matt down, and it frustrated me. I couldn't understand why she was holding on to a relationship that was making her miserable. So, I did what I thought was best. I gently started to plant the seeds in her mind. Little things. You deserve to be with someone who makes you feel excited every day, not just someone who's comfortable. Don't settle, Em. You'll regret it if you do. It wasn't long before the doubts took root in her mind, and one evening Emma made the decision to break up with Matt. She cried when she told me, and I was there, consoling her. I told her it was for the best, that she would find someone who would make her truly happy. But deep down, I knew I had played a bigger role in this than I had ever meant to. Then, the strangest thing happened. Matt called me a week after the breakup, his voice thick with emotion. He wanted to meet up. He said he needed closure, and I agreed, though I had no idea what was coming. When we sat down together at a coffee shop, I could feel the weight of everything between us. He looked at me with that familiar, sad smile. I don't understand what went wrong, he said. I know Emma, and I know her better than anyone. I thought I was the one who could make her happy. Something shifted in me then. As much as I hated to admit it, I had feelings for Matt. They had started slowly, creeping in over the months when I was supporting Emma. He was always there, vulnerable, kind, and patient. I had been the one to console him when Emma couldn't make up her mind. And somewhere along the way, I realized that I didn't just want to be his friend. I wanted more. I think Emma's making a mistake, I said before I could stop myself. I hadn't planned on saying it, but the words came out before I could catch them. Matt looked up at me, his eyes searching. What do you mean? I think you two belong together, I blurted out. And I think I've been pushing her to do something she's not ready for. You're a great guy, Matt, and I think Emma's scared of the commitment, but I think she loves you. Maybe she just doesn't know it yet. There was a long silence, and I saw the flicker of realization in his eyes. He looked at me, then back down at his hands, and when he finally spoke, it was with a quiet intensity. Do you still love her, or is there something else? The truth was clear now. I hadn't just been looking out for her. I had been looking out for myself, trying to create space between Emma and Matt so I could have him for myself. The guilt hit me then, but at the same time, something inside me wanted to make it right, to fix the mess I had created. I think I'm the one who's confused, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I think I'm the one who's been holding on to something I shouldn't. But I also think you and I deserve a chance. Matt didn't say anything at first. He just stared at me, processing everything I had just said. And then, slowly a smile spread across his face. It wasn't the kind of smile he gave Emma. This one was softer, warmer, as if he'd been waiting for this moment all along. Are you sure? He asked, his voice low. I nodded. I'm sure. A month later, we were married. It felt surreal, but also right. There were moments of guilt when I thought about Emma, how she would feel when she found out, but I knew in my heart that this was the path I was supposed to take. Matt and I built a life together, a life that was messy and complicated but also filled with love in a way I never imagined. Sometimes, I wonder if it was fate or just a twist of luck that led me to him. I discovered my boyfriend is cheating and secretly leaked their affair to their workplace, costing them their job and reputation. It started with a text. I was sitting on the couch flipping through TV channels when my boyfriend, Mark, got a notification on his phone. He was in the kitchen making dinner, so I glanced at the screen. Can't wait to see you tonight, the message read. I froze. Who was texting him that? And why? I picked up the phone, my heart pounding. The number wasn't saved, but the area code was local. I hesitated for a moment, then opened the message thread. There were dozens of texts, flirty, suggestive, even explicit. My stomach churned as I scrolled through them. It was clear Mark was cheating on me. I felt a mix of emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness, but mostly I felt numb. Mark walked back into the room, carrying 2 plates of pasta. "Dinner's ready," he said, smiling. I forced a smile back, trying to hide my shock. "Thanks. Looks great." He sat down next to me, completely oblivious. "So, how was your day?" "Fine," I said, my voice tight. "Yours?" Same old, he said, taking a bite of his pasta. "Just another day at the office." I nodded, but my mind was racing. Who was she? How long had this been going on? And most importantly, what was I going to do about it? Over the next few days, I started digging. I needed to know the truth. I started by checking Mark's phone whenever he wasn't looking. I found more texts, more evidence of his affair. Her name was Sarah, and she worked at his office. They'd been seeing each other for months. I felt a surge of anger. How could he do this to me? We'd been together for 3 years. We'd talked about getting married, starting a family, and now this. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. I needed more evidence. I started following him. I'd wait outside his office, watching as he left for lunch or after work. Sure enough, I saw him with her laughing, holding hands, even kissing. It was like a knife to the heart. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just watched. And then, I started planning. I knew I couldn't just confront Mark. He'd deny it, or worse, blame me. No, I needed to be smarter than that. I started by gathering evidence. I took screenshots of the texts, photos of them together, even recorded a few of their conversations. I wanted to make sure I had everything I needed. Next, I waited for the right moment. I knew Mark's company had a strict policy against workplace relationships. If I could expose their affair, it would cost them both their jobs. But I didn't want to just send an anonymous email. No, I wanted to make sure everyone knew what they'd done. So I came up with a plan. The day of the company's annual meeting arrived, and I was ready. I'd spent the night before preparing my presentation, a slideshow of all the evidence I'd gathered. I dressed up, pretending I was just there to support Mark. He didn't suspect a thing. The meeting started, and everything seemed normal. The CEO gave a speech. The department heads presented their reports. And then it was Mark's turn. He walked up to the podium, looking confident. "Thank you all for being here today," he said, smiling. "I'm excited to share some of the great work we've been doing." I stood up, holding a USB drive. "Actually, Mark, I have something to add." He looked at me, confused. "Okay, what is it?" I walked up to the podium, plugged in the USB drive, and started the slideshow. The first slide was a text message, one of the flirty ones he'd sent to Sarah. The room went silent. "Mark has been having an affair with Sarah," I said, my voice steady. "And I have the proof." I clicked through the slides, showing photos, texts, even a video of them together. The room erupted in whispers. Mark's face turned red. This is ridiculous. She's lying." But the evidence was undeniable. The CEO stood up looking furious. "Mark, Sarah, my office." Now, they walked out, their heads down. As the room buzzed with gossip, I sat back down, feeling a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, but also satisfaction. They'd gotten what they deserved. The next few days were a whirlwind. Mark and Sarah were both fired, and the scandal made headlines in the local news. Mark tried to apologize, but I wasn't having it. "You made your choice," I said, my voice cold. "Now live with it." He moved out, and I started rebuilding my life. It wasn't easy, but I knew I'd done the right thing. And as for Sarah, well, let's just say she didn't fare much better. She lost her job, her reputation, and even her friends. It wasn't the way I planned it. But sometimes, you have to take matters into your own hands. Because if you don't stand up for yourself, who will? It's been a year since the cheating partner's downfall, and things are finally looking up. I've moved on, found a new job, and even started dating again. I came home laughing from business trip. I panicked. His voice used to be my anchor, steady and reassuring, the kind of voice that could calm me down after the worst day. But now, as I stood in the doorway of our home, his tone was cold, distant, almost unrecognizable. Jack was leaning against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, his eyes piercing through me like I was a stranger. I felt my stomach drop. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. I tried to laugh it off, to lighten the mood, but my laughter felt forced, even to me. It was sharp, nervous, and out of place. I kicked off my heels and tossed my purse onto the chair, trying to act normal, but the air in the room was heavy, suffocating. And then I saw it, the picture. Our wedding photo, framed and sitting on the dining room table. My heart stopped. There we were, smiling like we had the whole world in our hands. Me in my lace dress, him in his navy suit. We looked so happy, so in love. But now, the glass was smeared with bold red letters. Asterisk, I know. Asterisk, my breath hitched. My hands trembled as I reached out to touch the frame, but I couldn't. I couldn't move. My mind raced, trying to piece together how much he knew, what he knew, and how he found out. I turned to face him, my voice barely a whisper. "What is this, Jack?" He didn't flinch. His expression was stone cold, his voice steady. "Why don't you tell me, Sarah?" I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. What could I say? How could I explain? My mind was a whirlwind of panic and guilt. I wanted to tell him everything, to beg for his forgiveness, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I stammered, "Jack, I don't." I don't know what you're talking about. His bitter laugh cut through the silence like a knife. It was a laugh I'd never heard before, one that sent chills down my spine. Don't insult me, Sarah. I'm not stupid. I've known for months. All those business trips, late nights at the office, sudden gym sessions, did you really think I wouldn't notice? He pulled out his phone and began scrolling through pictures. My heart sank as I saw them, Mark and me holding hands, laughing, kissing. Each image felt like a punch to the gut. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. I was frozen, trapped in the weight of my own betrayal. Jack, I can explain, I pleaded, my voice trembling. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew they were empty. How could I explain this? How could I make him understand? Explain what, Sarah? He snapped, his voice rising. How you've been sneaking around with Mark while I've been working late to pay for your yoga retreats and spa days. How you've been lying to me, over and over again. Are you even sorry, or are you just sorry you got caught? I reached out to him, desperate to touch him, to make him see that I still loved him, but he stepped back, his hand raised to stop me. Don't, he said, his voice cold. Just don't. Tears streamed down my face as he continued, his words cutting deeper with every sentence. He told me about the divorce papers, the prenuptial agreement, the evidence he'd gathered. He'd thought of everything. He'd planned this, and then he dropped the final blow. He'd told Mark's wife. My legs gave out and I collapsed into a chair, my head in my hands. I made a mistake. Jack, I sobbed. Please, I love you. But his laugh was hollow, devoid of any warmth. Love? Is that what you call this? You don't love me, Sarah. You love the life I gave you, the stability, the comfort, the safety. But you didn't respect me. You threw it all away for what? A cheap thrill. His words hit me like a tidal wave, crushing me under their weight. He was right. I had thrown it all away. I had betrayed the man who had given me everything, and now I was losing him, forever. He grabbed his keys and headed for the door, pausing only to deliver one final blow. Oh, and I canceled the credit card for the new purse you bought on your business trip. Have fun explaining that. And then he was gone. The door slammed shut behind him, leaving me alone in the silence. My sobs echoed through the empty house, but there was no one left to hear them. No one left to care. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at our wedding photo, at the words I know scrawled across the glass. I thought about the life we'd built together, the love we'd shared, and how I'd destroyed it all. I thought about Mark, about the choices I'd made, and the consequences I'd have to face. But most of all, I thought about Jack, the man I'd loved, the man I'd betrayed, the man I'd lost. And as the tears continued to fall, I realized something. This wasn't just the end of our marriage, it was the end of me. After years of loud parties, a quiet neighbor uses sound frequencies to drive the noisy neighbor insane. It started with a bass drop. I was sitting in my living room, trying to enjoy a quiet evening with a book, when the walls began to vibrate. The deep, thumping bass of a dance track shook the floor, rattling the pictures on the walls and making my teeth chatter. I sighed, putting my book down. It was Friday night, and that could only mean one thing. My neighbor Chad was throwing another party. Chad lived in the apartment next door, and he was, well, let's just say he was the life of the party. Every weekend, without fail, he'd blast music so loud it felt like the walls were going to collapse. And it wasn't just the music, there were people shouting, laughing, and stomping around until the early hours of the morning. I'd tried talking to him about it. Of course, I'd knocked on his door, politely asked him to keep it down, even offered to help him soundproof his apartment. But Chad just laughed it off. Come on, man, he'd said, slapping me on the back. It's just a little fun. You should join us sometime. I'd forced a smile, but inside I was seething. Chad didn't care about anyone but himself. He didn't care that I had to work early in the morning, or that I valued my peace and quiet. No, all he cared about was his fun, and I'd had enough. The breaking point came a few weeks later. It was a Tuesday night, and Chad was at it again. The music was so loud I could feel it in my chest, and the noise of people shouting and laughing was unbearable. I tried to ignore it, to focus on my book, but it was impossible. My head was pounding, my nerves were frayed, and I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed over to Chad's apartment and pounded on the door. Chad, open up. The door swung open, and there he was, Chad, in all his glory. He was wearing a tank top and shorts, holding a beer in one hand and a Bluetooth speaker in the other. Hey man, what's up? He said, grinning like nothing was wrong. Chad, it's a Tuesday, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Do you really need to have a party right now? He shrugged. Hey, it's not a party. Just a few friends hanging out. You should join us. I clenched my fists, trying to control my anger. Chad, I have to work tomorrow. I need some peace and quiet. Can you please keep it down? He laughed. Come on, man. Don't be such a buzzkill. It's just a little noise. I stared at him, my blood boiling. A little noise. Chad, it's deafening. I can't even hear myself think. He rolled his eyes. All right, I'll turn it down. Happy closed the door before I could respond, and I stood there fuming. I knew he wasn't going to turn it down. He never did. I went back to my apartment, my mind racing. I couldn't keep living like this. I needed to do something. But what? The next day I started researching. I needed a way to get back at Chad, to make him understand how it felt to be constantly bombarded with noise. That's when I stumbled upon an article about sound frequencies. Apparently, certain frequencies could be used to drive people insane, or at least make them extremely uncomfortable. It was perfect. I spent the next few weeks learning everything I could about sound frequencies. I bought a high-powered speaker, a frequency generator, and a few other gadgets. I set up a soundproof room in my apartment where I could test different frequencies without disturbing anyone else. And then, I waited for the right moment. The moment came a few weeks later. It was Friday night, and Chad was throwing another party. The music was blasting, the walls were shaking, and I knew it was time. I set up the speaker in my living room, pointed it at the wall I shared with Chad's apartment, and turned on the frequency generator. At first, nothing happened. The music kept playing, the bass kept thumping, and I started to worry that it wasn't going to work. But then, I heard it. The music stopped. There was a moment of silence, and then I heard Chad's voice. "What the hell is that noise?" I smiled. It was working. I turned up the frequency, and the noise got louder. It was a high-pitched piercing sound, the kind that made your teeth hurt and your head feel like it was going to explode. I heard Chad shouting, "Turn it off, turn it off." But I didn't. I kept the frequency going, watching as the noise drove him insane. The next day, Chad knocked on my door. He looked different. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair was a mess, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Hey man," he said, his voice shaky. "Can we talk?" I nodded, trying to hide my smile. "Sure, Chad. What's up?" He took a deep breath. "Look, I'm sorry about the noise. I didn't realize how much it was bothering you. Can we call a truce?" I pretended to think about it for a moment, then nodded. "All right, Chad, truce." He looked relieved. "Thanks, man. I really appreciate it." I watched as he walked back to his apartment, feeling a mix of emotions, anger, satisfaction, but also pity. Chad had finally learned his lesson, but at what cost? It's been a few months since the noise revenge, and things are finally looking up. Chad still throws the occasional party, but he keeps the volume down, and he always invites me. AOHL for being upset that my boyfriend cancelled our romantic dinner to take his mom and sister instead. ME 24 female. Boyfriend 25 male. Basically my 24 female boyfriend 26 ALE. Of 3 years had told me over the weekend that he made reservations for a romantic restaurant on the lake. I was excited because our jobs don't allow us a lot of time to spend together as is. I packed a cute outfit and got everything ready this morning to change into after work. Then, he texts me, "I actually can't take you tonight. I'm going with my mom and sister to 5F Male instead." Now, normally, I'm pretty understanding, but this is weird, right? He kind of just brushed me off with, "Oh well, they really wanted to go, so yeah, sorry." I have no problem with him spending time with his family. But this was supposed to be our date. Not to mention I had to prepare and pack everything since he lives about 45 minutes away from me. Now he's going to enjoy a romantic dinner with his mom and sister, and I'm going back home to be by myself. AO for being upset about this. Relevant comments. McDavis, is this normal behavior for? Oh, honestly, yes. I usually take the high road with things like this. He loves them a lot and likes to spoil them. But it's starting to affect me. Temporary_refuse 4638. Is he actually going out with his mom and sister? Is this normal for your relationship? Has he always put his family first? Have you confirmed with his fam that he is going out with who he says he is? All around weird. Oh, I know it sounds so weird, but this is normal. He's really close with them. I know he's not lying about it. Part of me wishes he was. I just think he's a family man. Like a super family man to the point where I'm left behind. Update. Thank you all for your advice. I have read all the comments, and I went ahead and pressed the issue a little further with him. To respond to some questions in the comments. Asterisk, do you get along with his family? Asterisk, his family and I get along pretty well. We've been on trips together, gotten each other gifts for holidays, birthdays, the whole 9 yards. I have always had a creeping suspicion that they didn't like me because when I come over, they are super passive and don't really engage in conversation with me. When I ask my boyfriend, he says they're just reserved and shy. I think they just don't like that the only man in their life has a girlfriend. Asterisk, is he cheating on you? Asterisk. I can confidently say he's not cheating on me. He just has this weird relationship mama's boy thing going on that has always slightly bothered me. He literally goes out of his way to show his appreciation for them. Sometimes it's endearing, but sometimes I feel like I'm on a back burner now. He said he understands where he went wrong and doesn't want me to feel like I'm the last option. Apparently he's been canceling plans on them for a while, so he felt bad when they expressed interest in going to dinner with him tonight. Just them three. He said he actually made the plans with them yesterday, but forgot to text me before I got all my stuff packed up. I'm still not satisfied with this response, so we'll have to talk in person after he enjoys his dinner with them. I will be putting my foot down about the mom and sister thing. Like seriously, his sister is older than me and he treats her like she is 9 years old. Thank you to all the women and men sharing their mother-in-law, sister-in-law, father-in-law stories. You've given me confidence to stand up for myself. Update. I wasn't going to update, but I am livid. To clear it up from the beginning, his mom and sister knew that we had a date. They proposed the idea to get dinner with him. He told them he had already planned a date with me. They made sad faces and sighed. Oh, okay. That's when he felt bad for them. The fact he even told me this is insane, because why are two grown women guilt-tripping you right now? I FaceTime called with my boyfriend last night before dinner. We had a serious talk about his family and how I need him to start stepping up more. I told him I won't be option number 3 for my entire life and threatened to leave if that was the case. He understood, agreed, and we moved on. He said his mom was just stressed about work and wanted to talk to him. Sure, told him to enjoy his dinner and everything. Fast forward a few hours later during supposed dinner time. I'm on FaceTime with him again and wondering why he's not at the restaurant. His mom and sister fell asleep. They literally just fell asleep. Here I am literally begging this man for 1 day a week to see him and his mom and sister who live with him fall asleep. I told him straight up that they disrespected his time and did all these theatrics for nothing. So yeah, that's the update. Thanks for all your tough love and good advice. I have a lot to think about today. Really, even the mean comments were good. I don't normally talk to people early about my relationship, so I appreciate the little bits of advice. Top comments. Gap Representative 300. You deserve a better man. Stop begging him for attention. You'll always be an afterthought for him. Find a guy who will prioritize you. Have some self-respect. Coffee's 74. If you do want to stay with him, I recommend you make yourself scarce. Meet up with friends. Prioritize everyone else over him. Never call him first. Don't have time for him when he wants to meet. Make him really work for a date. It will completely shift the power balance. Unless he really doesn't give a damn about you, but then at least you will know. AITA for not taking down an X-rated book when my ex's girlfriend asked me to. Last year, I too for FEMA wrote an erotic novel to make some money on the side. It ended up picking up traction and makes a fair amount of sales every month. I'm not living off the income, but it helps pay some bills every month while I'm getting my master's. A lot of the book was inspired by my boyfriend at the time. He knew I was writing it, and it was often a joke between us that he had to give me more to write about. He read the book before I self-published it and gave it his seal of approval. I wouldn't have published it if he'd been uncomfortable. The character doesn't resemble him in personality or appearance, and there are no hints that would give away who my inspiration was. I wrote under a fake name too, so it's unlikely to be traced back to him at all. We broke up 6 months ago, but we keep in touch. We've been friends for a while, and the split was mutual, so there are no hard feelings. I knew that he had started seeing someone over the summer, and I guess he told her about the book because she approached me at the library yesterday and asked me to take the book down. She said it makes her uncomfortable knowing that people can read details about our sex life. I asked her if my ex was uncomfortable with it, and she said he was. I told her I would take it down. That night, I texted my ex and told him I was sorry the book made him uncomfortable and that I would take it down as soon as I could. He had no idea what I was talking about. He said it didn't make him uncomfortable, and that I didn't need to take it down. He cracked some jokes about how he was glad I was still profiting from his hard work. When I told him his new girlfriend had approached me, he said that she did think it was weird, but it wasn't her call. Today I was eating lunch and the girl came up to me again. She started saying that I was disrespectful for going behind her back to talk to her boyfriend. Side note, I talk to my ex semi-frequently anyways, and that I was disgusting for ever publishing the book. She also said that it was gross I was involving other people in my exhibitionist kink unwillingly. I let her talk for a bit and then told her she was overreacting. I said I did it to make money, not because I derived pleasure from it, and that the book's publication is between me and my ex. It doesn't involve her. She called me a bitch and stormed off. I know it's kind of weird to have a book out there with details about me and my ex's sex life, but I don't really want to take it down because it's a good source of income. Aita. Verdict, not the asshole. Top comments Rune due to end. Her insecurities are not your issue. Borbeck. Exactly this. And if she's so insecure, why read a book about her BF's sex life with his ex, Funkier and Jepigan, involving people in my exhibitionist kink unwillingly? Seeking erotic novels out and paying for them is hardly unwilling. She's the one going around her boyfriend's back in order to get her way. Let those kinky dollars roll in and edit. Hey guys, it's been a doozy of a day. First, thank you everyone for the replies. I made the post when I was questioning my sanity over the situation, and your comments brought me back down to earth. Some answers to questions. I don't know why he told her about that book. Since the post, I've told him it's something I would like to keep between the two of us. I feel like if anyone in my master's program finds out, I'll be taken much less seriously. If you're interested in self-publishing, try Amazon and do some reading about keywords. There are tons of blogs on it. I won't be giving out the name of the book, as it gets very, very kinky and this post has gotten a lot of views. I fear someone finding the story on other websites. On the off chance I made it, hi TikTok and making the connection, especially considering I don't know who else my ex has told. I have no idea how this girl keeps finding me. I'm on campus every time, so I assume it's just by chance, as she's in a master's program as well. Final update. An update. Shortly after I made the post, I got on Amazon to look at my book and noticed I'd gotten an influx of bad reviews. I checked the reviews and found some buzzwords that my ex's GF had used. Thankfully, I'm fairly certain I can get these removed. I'm also concerned because Amazon takes a few days to process reviews, so I don't know how many more of these will be coming. I decided to call my ex and let him know what was happening. I told him about his GF confronting me, calling me a bitch, how she initially lied to me about his feelings, and now the bad reviews. He was floored. I don't think he had seen that side of her personality. My ex is an all-around great guy and he was very apologetic. He said he would talk to her about it. He said he didn't tell her the name of the book, but he did have it on his Kindle, so she must have snooped and found it. This morning I was getting a coffee in the student center and the girl walked up to me and started screaming at me. Apparently she and my ex broke up and she blamed it on me. I didn't know what to do, so I just took off walking to my car. She started calling me a slut and a whore, and a pervert. Nothing in the book is that bad, especially if you like erotica already. She followed me out of the building but thankfully stopped chasing me once I hit the parking lot. I was shaking and I called my ex again. He ended up coming to sit in my car with me until I calmed down. We considered calling the campus police, but I didn't want to explain it to them, so he walked me back inside. She was there, but when she saw my ex with me, she didn't yell. She burst into tears and said she knew he was cheating. He told her to leave me alone. He hadn't cheated, factual, and that he broke up with her because she was too jealous and immature. She seemed flummoxed and left. Ex bought me a coffee and we discussed filling a police report if she approaches me again. Co-worker shares private information about me in a meeting. Hey everyone, I female to 7. Really need your advice on how to handle this situation. I work in an office job, and next to me sits the executive assistant female 6'1". We don't get along well because she treats me like her daughter. I notice it every time it happens and ask her to stop, but she doesn't. Today, we were in a tense meeting discussing a sensitive topic for the company. The atmosphere was already strained among the 8 participants. At some point, our boss suggested taking a break or calling it a day. I agreed that ending the meeting might be the better option. The assistant then looked at me weirdly and, in a very aggressive tone, said, "Well, you sure know a lot about terminations." There was a brief awkward silence before she immediately added, "Because she had an abortion." I was completely stunned and had no idea how to react. My colleagues were just as shocked. I just wished everyone a nice weekend, left the room, and went home early. It's true that I had an abortion this year, but I have no idea how she found out. Only 2 people in my life know about it, and she doesn't know either of them. Regardless, I find it absolutely unacceptable to bring something like that up, especially in a professional setting, whether it's relevant to the discussion or not. Now I'm wondering what steps I can take. We don't have a workers' council. Our HR representative is based at another location and is currently on extended sick leave. Our boss sees these kinds of conflicts as personal issues that should be resolved between the individuals involved. I plan to confront the assistant on Monday. Could there be legal consequences for her, or do I just have to accept this and move on? I'd really appreciate any advice. Thanks in advance. Update: to have an appointment with a lawyer first thing Monday morning. Since we only need a sick note from the 3rd day of absence, I'll be calling in sick on Monday and discussing the next steps with the lawyer. I've also found the contact details of the data protection officer at the clinic, but I'll wait until after my lawyer appointment to proceed with that. I really appreciate all of your support. The idea that sensitive data might have been leaked from the clinic didn't occur to me on my own, and I hadn't even considered it before. You've all opened up a lot of options for me that I'll discuss with the lawyer on Monday. Thank you for that. Update: after a thorough search online, I found out that the partner of the boss's son actually works at the clinic where I had the procedure. I strongly suspect that this is how the assistant got hold of the information, as she regularly attends family events and birthdays of the boss's family. This seems to be the most likely explanation for how she found out. Update: hello everyone. Here's the update, smiley face. On Monday, I had a meeting with a lawyer, and it was definitely worth it. During the meeting with the lawyer, my boss called me and asked me to come to the office for a clarifying conversation. After discussing with my lawyer, I went to the office to have the conversation. The assistant greeted me in tears and insisted that it wasn't meant like that. I took my favorite colleague with me as a witness support, and we entered the meeting. Given the sensitive nature of the topic, I asked for minutes to be taken, which everyone agreed to. In the conversation, my boss explained that such behavior between colleagues would not be tolerated, and the assistant had to apologize and promise that it wouldn't happen again. I then asked what consequences would follow, to which he seemed confused and asked if I even wanted consequences, since an apology was given. Naturally, I demanded consequences for the assistant and clarification about the data leak. I also told the boss that it was outrageous that he was asking if I wanted consequences instead of implementing them himself, especially when it comes to something as sensitive as spreading private information. He became a bit grumpy but explained that it wasn't a data leak and that he had just slipped up. When I asked where he got this information from, he bluntly admitted that he had learned about it through his daughter-in-law. He even followed up with, "But you couldn't even tell you had the procedure." I seriously thought I was going to flip out in that room, but fortunately I managed to stay composed. I asked for confirmation of his statements to make sure everything was understood correctly, and then had everyone sign the protocol. I got up, wished everyone a nice day, and informed him that my lawyer would be contacting him, and we'd go from there. One of the 6 colleagues who was in the meeting on Friday approached me afterward, apologized for not saying anything in the moment, and wished me luck, strength, and that someone would react better than he did if something like this happened again. I really appreciated that. 3 days later, here's where we stand. The assistant received her 3rd warning. I don't know where the first 2 came from. Today, I received confirmation that she has to leave the company. I think my boss would have preferred not to make this decision, but since the situation spread very quickly through the office grapevine, it seems to have influenced his decision. As for the clinic, the first contact was made through my lawyer. I didn't personally call or inform the data protection officer. The lawyer took care of all of that. The lady at the clinic no longer works there, as the lead doctor seems to be aware of the risks. He apologized both over the phone and in writing, and I'll be receiving a nice compensation. And with my employer, we were able to agree on a very nice severance package, and the termination of my employment is happening soon. These are all nice solutions, but there are still civil and criminal proceedings ongoing, which I can't discuss right now. The lawyer is motivated to bring further consequences, especially regarding GDPR violations. All I can say is, don't tolerate this kind of treatment. He's just a roommate. I told my friends, so he moved out and made me pay rent alone. It was just a joke. That's all it was. A stupid, offhand comment I made to my friends over dinner. I didn't mean it, not really. At least, I didn't think I did. But now, sitting alone in this apartment that feels too big and too quiet, I can't stop replaying that night in my head. It started like any other dinner with my friends. We were laughing, catching up, and, yes, maybe I was venting a little. Married life hadn't been what I expected. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't exciting. We'd fallen into a routine, and I guess I felt like he wasn't trying anymore. So, when one of my friends asked, "How's married life treating you?" I laughed. It was a nervous laugh, the kind you make when you don't want to admit something's wrong. "Oh, please," I said, rolling my eyes. "He's just my roommate at this point. Just my roommate." The table erupted in laughter. My friends nodded, like they understood, like they'd been there too. And for a moment it felt good to be seen, to be heard. But then I glanced down the table and saw him. He wasn't laughing. He wasn't even smiling. He just sat there, staring at his plate, his face unreadable. I froze. Had he heard me? No, he couldn't have. He was too far away, and the restaurant was too loud. Besides, he wasn't even paying attention. He never did at these things. I pushed the thought out of my mind and went back to my friends. The rest of the night was a blur. He was quieter than usual, but I didn't think much of it. He'd been distant lately, and I figured it was just work stress or something. When we got home, I didn't bring it up. Why would I? It was just a joke. But the next morning, he did. "Why did you say that?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. I was half asleep, scrolling through my phone, and his question caught me off guard. "Say what?" I mumbled, not looking up. At dinner, when they asked about married life, I frowned, trying to remember. "What are you talking about? You called me your roommate." I rolled my eyes. "Oh, that? Come on, it was just a joke." He didn't laugh. "You didn't sound like you were joking." I sighed, setting my phone down. "You're being too sensitive. It was just something to say. I didn't mean anything by it." He stared at me, his expression unreadable. "You didn't mean anything by it," he repeated slowly. I could feel myself getting defensive. "Yeah, but it was just a joke. Why are you making such a big deal out of this?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he asked, "You've said that before, haven't you?" I hesitated. That was my mistake. The next few days were tense. He was quieter than usual, and I could tell something was off, but I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't even know if I wanted to. And then, one morning he was gone. At first I didn't notice. He'd left early for work before, and I figured that's what had happened. But when I came home that night and his side of the closet was half empty, I realized the truth. He'd left me. I didn't know what to do. I called him, texted him, but he didn't answer. It wasn't until a week later that he finally responded, not to me, but to my messages about the bills. Asterisk, "Did you cancel the autopay for the bills?" I'd asked. "Yes," asterisk, he replied simply. That was it. No explanation, no apology. Just yet, I felt a pang of panic. The bills were in my name, but we'd always split them. Without his income, I wasn't sure I could afford everything on my own. I tried reaching out again, this time with more urgency. Asterisk, "I need to talk to you. Call me," asterisk. Still, nothing. It wasn't until a few days later that he finally agreed to meet. I was nervous as I waited for him at the coffee shop. When he walked in, he looked different, calmer, more confident, like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. I forced a smile. "Hey." He nodded and sat down across from me, his expression unreadable. I took a deep breath. "I don't really know how to start this," I admitted. He said nothing. I sighed. I feel like you overreacted. I didn't mean what I said the way you took it. And I think if we just talk this out, we can figure things out." He leaned back in his chair, studying me. "You think I left because of one thing you said?" I blinked, caught off guard. Well, yeah. He shook his head. That wasn't a joke. That was how you really saw me. And I realized that night that I was done being in a marriage where I was nothing more than a roommate to my own wife. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't mean it like that. I insisted, my voice trembling. I was just venting. My friends and I, we joke around like that all the time. Jokes have some truth in them, he said quietly. I opened my mouth to argue, but no words came out, because deep down, I knew he was right. The conversation didn't last much longer. He stood up, said, "Take care of yourself," and walked out. And just like that, it was over. In the weeks that followed, I tried to reach out a few more times. Asterisk, "Hey, just checking in. Hope you're doing okay." Asterisk, "Let me know if you want to talk." But he never responded. It wasn't until I had to downsize, until I had to give up the apartment we'd shared, that I finally understood the full weight of what I'd lost. It wasn't just the financial stability or the convenience of having someone else around. It was him, the man who had loved me, supported me, and tried to make our marriage work even when I didn't. And now, he was gone. I don't know if I'll ever get over the guilt, the regret, the knowledge that I had something real and I threw it away, because I was too selfish to see what I had. But I do know this. Sometimes, you don't realize what you've lost until it's gone. And by then, it's too late. I asked my husband to choose between me and his mom, and I think he is going to divorce me. 2 days ago, I sat my husband down and told him, "You need to choose. It's either me or your mom." I'd been rehearsing those words in my head for weeks, but saying them out loud still felt like a punch to my own chest. He froze, his phone still in his hand, some video playing on mute. For a second, I thought he hadn't heard me. "What?" He laughed awkwardly, like I'd just told a bad joke. But I wasn't joking. My face was stone cold. "Choose," I repeated. "I can't live like this anymore." It wasn't a fight. It wasn't screaming. It was just me, staring at him, daring him to argue. And the fact that he didn't, that he just sat there, confused, made it so much worse. Let me back up. I know people will ask, asterisk, what's the deal with his mom? Is she that bad? Asterisk. Here's the thing. His mom isn't a bad person. She's kind, supportive, and maybe a little over-involved. But that's not the problem. The problem is him. He doesn't see it. He never has. We've been married for years, and from the beginning, his mom has been a constant presence. At first, I thought it was sweet. She'd cook meals for us, drop them off unannounced, and call him every single day. I told myself it was just her way of showing love. But over time, it started to feel suffocating. I tried to talk to him about it. "Your mom's always around," I'd say. "It feels like she's in our marriage." He'd brush it off. "She's just being nice. You're overreacting." But I wasn't overreacting. I felt like I was competing with her for his attention. And no matter what I did, I always came in second. The breaking point came a few weeks ago. His mom showed up at our house unannounced again with a pot of soup. I was in the middle of cooking dinner, and there she was, standing in our kitchen, acting like she owned the place. I tried to be polite, but inside I was seething. When she left, I turned to my husband and said, "This has to stop." He just shrugged. "She's just trying to help." That's when I realized he'll never put me first. Not as long as she's around. So I gave him the ultimatum. When I said those words, "me or your mom," I expected him to fight for me, to finally see how much this was hurting me. But he didn't. He just sat there, staring at me like I'd spoken another language. "You can't be serious," he said. "You're making me choose between my wife and my mom. That's not fair." I crossed my arms and didn't blink. "What's not fair is that I've been putting up with this for years. Your mom's in our marriage. She's a third person here." He asked for specifics, like he genuinely didn't know what I was talking about. So I told him. The unannounced visits, the constant calls, the way he never tells her no. But he didn't get it. He just kept saying, "That's just how she is." That night, I packed a bag. I couldn't stay there anymore, not when he refused to see how much this was tearing me apart. "Where are you going?" he asked, standing there like a total idiot. "To my sister's," I said. He followed me to the door, begging me to slow down. He said he couldn't just make that decision, that it wasn't fair to pit two people he loves against each other. And then I said the words I'd been holding back for years. "I hope you like being a mama's boy forever." I slammed the door behind me. If you read my last post, you know I gave my husband an ultimatum. Choose between me or his mom. He couldn't do it, so I left. At the time I thought this was about boundaries, about finally standing up for myself. But now, I'm starting to wonder if it's about something deeper. It's been a couple of days since I left, and I've been staying at my sister's. My husband has been texting me, asking to talk, but I'm not ready. I need space to think. Yesterday, I got a call from my sister. "You're not going to believe this," she said. She told me my husband had been digging into my past, talking to my old co-workers, asking about me. I couldn't believe it. "What's he looking for?" I asked. "I don't know," she said. "But it sounds like he's trying to prove something." That's when it hit me. He's not trying to fix this. He's trying to blame me. I pulled out my phone and checked our joint bank account. Sure enough, he'd been monitoring my spending. I felt a surge of anger. How dare he? I called him. "What's going on?" he asked, his tone cold. "You tell me," I shot back. "Why are you digging into my past? Why are you checking our bank account?" He didn't deny it. I needed to know what was really going on, he said. And what did you find? I asked. He hesitated. Nothing. But I knew that wasn't true. He'd found something that made him question me. And that's when I realized, this marriage is over. After my husband started digging into my past, I knew I had to confront him. I couldn't let him paint me as the villain in this story. I called him and said, we need to meet in person. He agreed, and we met at his apartment. We sat there in silence for a moment before I started. Why are you doing this? I asked. Why are you trying to turn this around on me? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he said, I know you took $10,000 from our savings. I know you asked my mom about her will. What the hell is going on? I sighed. I was tired of explaining myself. I did what I had to do, I said. You and your mom have a weird relationship. She controls you whether you see it or not. How was asking about her while doing what you had to do? He shot back. How does taking our money fix anything? I looked him in the eye. I wanted security. You'll never put me first as long as she's around. I thought if I could get you to see how toxic she is, you'd wake up, but you didn't. So I left. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then, finally, he said, you're right. You are done. We're done. I didn't argue. I just stood up and walked out. Looking back now, I feel like I've woken up from a bad dream. I spent so long trying to make him see how much this was hurting me, but he never did. I married someone who didn't value me for me. He saw me as a problem, not a partner. And now, I'm finally free. Mom's boyfriend moved in and suddenly thought he's in charge. Okay, so, where do I even start? I guess I should begin with the day my mom's boyfriend, Greg, moved in. Ugh, just saying his name makes me cringe. Anyway, it was a Saturday morning, and I was minding my own business, scrolling through TikTok in my room, when I heard this loud, booming voice downstairs. Linda, this couch would look much better against the far wall. It'll open up the space. I froze. Asterisk, who the heck is that? Then it hit me. My mom's new boyfriend. The guy she'd been gushing about for months. The guy who, apparently, was now moving in. I stormed out of my room and leaned over the banister. Excuse me. Who said you could rearrange our furniture? Greg looked up at me, all calm and smug, like he'd been expecting this. Mia, your mom asked for my opinion. It's polite to help out. Oh no, he didn't. I shot back. Yeah, well, I didn't ask for your opinion. Don't tell me what's polite. My mom appeared at the bottom of the stairs, looking all stressed out. Mia, please. Greg's just trying to help. Help, I said, rolling my eyes. Great. Maybe he can paint my room while he's at it. I slammed my door and texted my best friend, Jake. Asterisk, ugh, Greg's here. He's already redecorating. Kill me now, Jake replied. Asterisk, lol, sounds like a control freak. Want me to come over and accidentally spill something on his stuff? I smirked. Maybe later. The next morning I came downstairs to find a typed list taped to the fridge. I squinted at it, my stomach sinking as I read. House rules. 1. Curfew, 10 p.m. on weekdays, 12 a.m. on weekends. 2. No shoes in the house. 3. Dishes must be washed immediately after use. 4. No loud music after 8 p.m. 5. All plans must be approved by Greg or Linda. I ripped the list off the fridge and marched into the kitchen, where Greg was sipping coffee and reading the newspaper. What is this? I demanded, waving the paper in his face. Greg looked up, all calm and collected. House rules. Every household needs structure. Structure. This is a dictatorship. I shot back. My mom walked in, still in her robe. Mia, calm down. Greg's just trying to make things run smoothly. Smoothly for who? Him. I threw the list on the table. I'm not a kid, Mom. I don't need a curfew or permission to hang out with my friends. Greg set his coffee down and leaned forward. Mia, rules are there for a reason. They help create respect and responsibility. I snorted. Respect. You've been here one day, and you're already acting like you're my dad. Newsflash, you're not. The room went silent. My mom looked hurt, and Greg's jaw tightened. I knew I'd crossed a line, but I didn't care. I grabbed my backpack and headed for the door. Where are you going? Greg called after me. Out, I said without looking back. Don't worry, I'll be back by curfew. Things only got worse from there. Greg started enforcing his stupid rules, so I started breaking them. I stayed out late, left my dishes in the sink, and blasted my music as loud as I wanted. One night, Jake and I decided to mess with Greg. We replaced his fancy coffee beans with instant coffee. The next morning, I watched out of the corner of my eye as he took his first sip, his face twisted in disgust. He spat the coffee into the sink. Linda, did you buy new coffee? My mom looked confused. No. Why? Greg inspected the bag of instant coffee, his expression darkening. This isn't mine. I couldn't hold back my laughter. Greg turned to me, his eyes narrowing. Mia, did you do this? Do what? I asked innocently, though my grin gave me away. Greg sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. This is childish. So are your rules. I shot back. My mom intervened before things could escalate. Mia, apologize. Greg's just trying to make this work. Why should I apologize? He's the one acting like he's in charge. I grabbed my backpack and stormed out, leaving my mom and Greg in stunned silence. The prank war escalated over the next few weeks. Jake and I replaced Greg's shampoo with green hair dye, which turned his hair a faint mint color, hid his car keys, and even programmed the TV remote to only play Spanish soap operas. Greg retaliated by enforcing stricter rules: no Wi-Fi after 9 p.m., mandatory family dinners, and a chore chart that I refused to follow. The tension in the house was unbearable. My mom tried to mediate, but her attempts only made things worse. "Mia, Greg's not trying to replace your dad," she said one evening after another blow-up argument. "Then why does he act like it?" I snapped. "He's not my parent, Mom. He's just some guy you're dating." My mom's eyes filled with tears. "I just want us to be a family." "Well, maybe I don't," I said coldly before retreating to my room. One night, I overheard Greg and my mom arguing in the kitchen. "You're too hard on her, Greg," my mom said. "She's just a kid. She's out of control, Linda," Greg replied. "If you don't set boundaries now, it'll only get worse." I was about to burst in when Greg added, "I don't want to make the same mistakes I did with my daughter." I froze. "Daughter?" I waited until Greg left the kitchen, then confronted my mom. What was he talking about? "He has a daughter." My mom sighed. "Yes, her name's Emily. They haven't spoken in years." "Why not?" "It's complicated. Greg was in the military, and he was gone a lot. When he came back, he tried to be strict with her, but it just pushed her away." I felt a pang of sympathy but quickly pushed it aside. Well, maybe he should have learned from that, instead of trying to control me. Greg ended up moving out. My mom was devastated, and I thought I'd feel relieved, but instead, I just felt empty. I realized too late that Greg wasn't trying to be the bad guy. He was just trying to help, in his own messed up way. And now he's gone, and my mom's heartbroken, and it's all my fault. So, yeah, that's my story. Mom's BF moved in, tried to set a curfew, and ended up losing everything. My ex spreaded rumors that I had been cheating, but I calmly exposed her lies with evidence. It was a crisp autumn morning and the city was just waking up. I sat at my favorite coffee shop, sipping a latte and scrolling through my emails. Life was good. My career was on track, my friends were great, and my relationship with Clara was perfect. Or so I thought. My phone buzzed with a text from Clara. "Clara, hey, can we talk tonight? Something's come up." I frowned. Clara wasn't one for cryptic messages. She was straightforward, honest, and always wore her heart on her sleeve. Something felt off. "Me, sure. Everything okay? Clara, I'll explain later. See you at 7. Me, of course. Love you. Clara, love you too." I tried to shake off the unease, but it lingered like a bad aftertaste. Little did I know, my world was about to be turned upside down. That evening, I arrived at Clara's apartment, a bouquet of her favorite flowers in hand. She opened the door, her face pale and her eyes red. "Hey," I said, handing her the flowers. "What's going on?" Clara took the flowers but didn't smile. "Let's sit down." We sat on her couch, and Clara took a deep breath. "I've been hearing some things about you." I blinked. "Things? What kind of things?" Clara hesitated, then pulled out her phone. She showed me a series of texts from an unknown number. "Unknown. You should know your boyfriend's been cheating on you. I have proof." "Unknown. He's been seeing someone else for months." "Don't believe me. Ask him about the nights he's been working late." "Unknown. He's not who you think he is." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. "Clara, this is insane. I would never cheat on you." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Then why would someone say this? Who would do this?" I shook my head, my mind racing. "I don't know, but I swear to you it's not true." The next few days were a blur. Clara was distant, and I could tell she was struggling to believe me. I knew I had to get to the bottom of this. I started by tracing the unknown number. It was a burner phone, of course, but I managed to track it to a local convenience store. The clerk remembered a woman buying the phone, a woman who matched the description of my ex, Vanessa. Vanessa, the name sent a chill down my spine. Our breakup had been messy, to say the least. She had accused me of cheating, of being emotionally unavailable, of 100 other things that weren't true. I had tried to end things amicably, but she had taken it hard. Could she really be behind this? I decided to confront Vanessa. I found her at her favorite cafe, sipping a cappuccino and scrolling through her phone. She looked up as I approached, her expression unreadable. "Vanessa," I said, my voice calm but firm. "We need to talk." She raised an eyebrow. "About what?" "About the texts you've been sending, Clara." Vanessa's eyes widened, but she quickly composed herself. "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots. "This is your number. You've been spreading lies about me." Vanessa smirked. "Lies? Are you sure about that?" I leaned in, my voice low. "Vanessa, I don't know what your game is, but this ends now. Clara and I are happy, and I won't let you ruin that." Vanessa's smirk faltered, but she quickly recovered. "We'll see about that." I knew I needed proof to clear my name. I started by gathering all my work schedules, text messages, and receipts from the nights I had supposedly been working late. I even reached out to my colleagues, who were more than willing to vouch for me, but I needed more. I needed to expose Vanessa's lies. I hired a private investigator who quickly uncovered a trail of deceit. Vanessa had been following me, taking photos of me with random women and doctoring them to look incriminating. She had even created fake social media profiles to back up her claims. The investigator also found evidence that Vanessa had been harassing Clara's friends, trying to turn them against me. Armed with the evidence, I arranged a meeting with Clara and Vanessa. I wanted to confront Vanessa in front of Clara, to show her the truth once and for all. We met at a quiet park, the autumn leaves crunching under our feet. Vanessa looked smug, but I could see the nervousness in her eyes. "Clara," I began, "I know you've been hearing a lot of things about me, but I want you to know the truth." I handed Clara a folder filled with the evidence I had gathered. She flipped through it, her eyes widening with each page. "Vanessa," I said, turning to my ex, "you've been spreading lies about me, but it ends here." Vanessa's smirk faltered. "You can't prove anything." I pulled out my phone and played a recording of Vanessa admitting to the private investigator that she had fabricated the entire story. Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Vanessa, how could you?" Vanessa's face turned red with anger. "You think you're so perfect, don't you? You think you can just move on and be happy? Well, I won't let you." Clara and I left the park together, the weight of the confrontation still heavy in the air. We sat on a bench, the silence between us thick with unspoken words. "I'm so sorry," I said finally. "I never wanted you to go through this." Clara shook her head. "It's not your fault. I should have trusted you." I took her hand. "I love you, Clara, and I would never do anything to hurt you." Clara smiled, her eyes still wet with tears. "I love you too, and I'm sorry I ever doubted you." We sat there for a while, just holding hands and watching the leaves fall. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Months later, Clara and I were stronger than ever. Vanessa's lies had brought us closer, and we had learned to communicate better and trust each other more. As for Vanessa, she disappeared from our lives, her revenge plot having backfired spectacularly. I hoped she would find peace, but I knew it wasn't my responsibility to help her. One evening, as Clara and I sat on our balcony, watching the sunset, she turned to me. "Hey Daniel, yeah, thanks for not giving up on us." I smiled, pulling her close. "I'll always fight for us, Clara, no matter what." And as the sun dipped below the horizon, we knew we had found our way back to each other, and that was all that mattered. My girlfriend staged a fake cheating scenario to see if I will fight for her, but my logical response left her devastated. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon, and the park was bustling with life. Couples strolled hand in hand, children laughed as they chased each other, and the scent of freshly cut grass filled the air. Among them were me and Mia, the picture-perfect couple. We had been together for 3 years, and to everyone who knew us, we were the epitome of love and harmony. I was the calm, logical type. I worked as a software engineer, my mind always sharp and analytical. Mia, on the other hand, was a free spirit, an artist who thrived on emotion and creativity. We balanced each other out, or so we thought. As we sat on a bench, sharing a bag of popcorn, Mia turned to me with a mischievous glint in her eye. "Marco," she began, her voice playful, "what would you do if I told you I was cheating on you?" I raised an eyebrow, unfazed. "I'd ask for proof, and then I'd probably break up with you." Mia laughed, but there was a hint of something else in her eyes, something I couldn't quite place. "You're so logical, Marco. Don't you ever just feel?" I shrugged. "Feelings are important, but they're not everything. Logic keeps things in check." Mia sighed, leaning back against the bench. "Sometimes I wish you'd just react, like really react." I glanced at her, sensing there was more to her words than she was letting on. "Mia, is something bothering you?" Mia hesitated, then shook her head. "No, it's nothing. Just thinking out loud." A week later, I was at home, working on a coding project, when my phone buzzed with a text from Mia. "Mia, hey, can we talk tonight? Something's come up." I frowned. Mia wasn't one for cryptic messages. She was usually direct, sometimes to a fault. "Me, sure. Everything okay?" "Mia, I'll explain later. See you at 7. "Me, of course. Love you." "Mia, love you too." I tried to shake off the unease, but it lingered like a bad aftertaste. I had a feeling something was off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. That evening, I arrived at Mia's apartment, a bouquet of her favorite flowers in hand. She opened the door, her face pale and her eyes red-rimmed. "Hey," I said, handing her the flowers. "What's going on?" Mia took the flowers but didn't smile. "Let's sit down." We sat on our couch, and Mia took a deep breath. "Marco, I've been seeing someone else." I blinked, my mind racing. "What?" Mia nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "I didn't mean for it to happen, but it just did. I'm so sorry." I stared at her, my heart pounding. I wanted to feel something: anger, sadness, anything, but all I felt was nothing, just a cold, logical void. "Who is it?" I asked, my voice calm. Mia hesitated. "It's Jake, from my art class." I nodded slowly. "Jake, okay." Mia's eyes widened. "That's it, just okay." I shrugged. "What do you want me to say?" "Mia, you've made your choice. I'm not going to beg you to stay." Mia's tears spilled over. "Marco, I thought you'd fight for me." I looked at her, my expression unreadable. "If you need drama to feel loved, maybe we're not on the same page." The next few days were a blur. I threw myself into my work, trying to distract myself from the pain I refused to acknowledge. Mia, on the other hand, was a mess. She had expected me to fight for her, to show some emotion. But my calm, logical response had left her feeling empty. She texted her best friend, Sarah. Mia, he didn't even care. Sarah, he just let me go. Sarah, maybe he's just in shock. Give him time. Mia, no, it's more than that. He didn't even seem upset. It's like, he doesn't care. Sarah, I'm sorry. Mia, but maybe this is for the best. If he can't give you what you need, then maybe you're better off without him. Mia sighed, her heart heavy. She had wanted to test me, to see if I would fight for her, but now she wasn't sure if she had made a mistake. A week later, I was at my favorite coffee shop, trying to focus on my work, when Mia walked in. She looked nervous, her hands trembling as she approached my table. Marco, she began, her voice shaky. Can we talk? I looked up, my expression calm but guarded. Sure, what's up? Mia sat down, taking a deep breath. Marco, I lied. I wasn't cheating on you. I wanted to see if you'd fight for me. I stared at her, my mind racing. You lead. Mia nodded, her eyes filling with tears. I'm so sorry, Marco. I needed to know if you cared, if you'd fight for us. I leaned back in my chair, my expression unreadable. Mia, if you need drama to feel loved, maybe we're not on the same page. Mia's tears spilled over. I know, Marco. I know I messed up, but I needed to know. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Mia, I care about you. I love you, but I'm not going to play games. If you can't trust me, if you need to test me, then maybe we're not right for each other. Mia's heart ached. She had wanted to test me, to see if I would fight for her, but now she realized she had pushed me away. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of Mia's confession hanging heavy in the air. Finally, I spoke. Mia, I need you to understand something. I'm not the kind of person who thrives on drama. I'm logical, analytical. That's who I am. If you need someone who's going to be emotional, who's going to fight and make grand gestures, then maybe I'm not the right person for you. Mia nodded, her tears still flowing. I know, Mark, and I'm so sorry. I needed to know if you cared. I reached across the table, taking her hand. I do care, Mia, but I need you to trust me, to believe in us without testing me. Mia squeezed my hand, her heart aching. I do trust you, Marco, and I'm so sorry for what I did. I smiled softly. We all make mistakes, Mia. What matters is what we do next. Months later, Mia and I were stronger than ever. We had learned to communicate better, to trust each other more. Mia had realized that love didn't need to be dramatic to be real, and I had learned to open up a little more, to show my emotions in my own way. Am I wrong for insisting my sister honor our custody agreement? There's a lot of history here. My sister, Mia, 35, had my niece, Sophia, 9, when she was 26. At the time, she was living with our parents along with her then boyfriend, and they had both recently completed rehab for heroin addiction. Unfortunately, neither of them stayed clean for long, and Mia used drugs throughout her pregnancy. When Sophia was almost 2 months old, Mia came to me, pleading for me to take Sophia for 2 months while she went back to rehab. I was 22, living in a small apartment and putting myself through law school, but our parents insisted they couldn't care for an infant, and had even suggested foster care to Mia. So, I took Sophia in. After Mia completed rehab, she reunited with her boyfriend, who was still using drugs, and this began a 5-year cycle where one of them would get clean, only to relapse because of the other. I took legal guardianship of Sophia, though it was meant to be temporary. Every time Mia brought up taking Sophia back, I agreed on the condition that both she and her boyfriend passed a drug test, but it never happened. When Sophia was almost 6, Mia told me she was pregnant again. This time, it seemed like a turning point. She gave birth to my nephew, having been clean for nearly 8 months. Transitioning Sophia back to her parents was difficult for both of us. We went to court and established a custody agreement where I have Sophia every weekend, while she spends the week with her mom and dad. We attended family therapy together for the first year, and once we settled into a routine, we stopped. Now, the issue. Mia is pregnant again, and she and her now husband say they don't want Sophia to spend weekends with me anymore because she comes home acting out. I understand the concern. I explained to Mia that when Sophia is with me, she gets a lot of attention, and going from that to competing with her brother for Mia's limited attention, especially with morning sickness and pregnancy fatigue, must be hard. I offered to take my nephew on weekends too, to give Mia a break, or to resume family therapy to help Sophia adjust. Mia, however, insisted that Sophia would take a break from seeing me. I gave her 2 weekends without Sophia. But when she continued to refuse, I threatened to take her to court. We have a custody agreement in place, and I'm still one of Sophia's legal guardians. Mia accused me of throwing the past in her face and not letting her be a real mother to Sophia. I'm torn. I raised Sophia for nearly 6 years, and I cherish every moment with her. But am I overstepping? Sophia calls me every evening, asking what we're doing over the weekend and why I don't have time for her. I think Mia is framing it as me not wanting Sophia to come. I just want what's best for her. Edit. To clarify, Sophia is now 9. Mia has been clean for over 3 years. We transitioned Sophia slowly. She spent every other weekend with her parents for a year. Then we had a 50-50th split, and now I have her on weekends. I've always been flexible. If they had weekend plans, I'd let them take Sophia. This isn't about them wanting family time, it's about them not wanting me to spend time with her. They sent her brother to our parents' house last weekend, and Sophia went there too. So, I don't see how it's different if I take her. Mia is a stay-at-home mom with plenty of time with Sophia. She's struggled with her health and rarely leaves the house, which is often messy. Our parents bought Mia a house when Sophia was 3, hoping it would help her regain custody. With her husband working in it, they manage financially. I drive Sophia to karate, swimming, and Girl Scouts weekly and stay in close contact with her. Her husband has relapsed twice in the past 3 years but was kicked out both times, so Sophia wasn't exposed to it. Some have suggested they're using Sophia as a babysitter, but I don't think so. Mia rarely leaves the house, and I keep Sophia busy with activities to keep her active. Recently, they let her watch her 3-year-old brother for 2 hours, and she was thrilled to earn $20. Edit. The comments about what might be happening at home worried me. I reached out to Sophia's former therapist and scheduled an appointment for Friday after school. During sessions, Sophia talks to the therapist alone first, then we join together. I'll reassure her that I'll always have time for her and ask if she's happy living with her parents or if she'd prefer spending less time there. Wish me luck, and thank you for the feedback. Relevant comments on the transition, where it took things slowly. I'd never let them sever our bond. They had Sophia every other weekend for almost a year before we switched her primary residence. I know I could easily regain custody. I'm a lawyer and know the system well, but I'm unsure if that's the right move. Sophia sees me as a mother, but Mia carries so much guilt and is trying hard to be a good mom. It's hard to see clearly. We transitioned slowly, weekends with them for a year, then a 50-50th split for almost a year, and now I've had weekends for nearly a year. On Sophia's behavior, she was doing well until Mia got pregnant again. She loved having a little brother and had started calling Mia mum for the first time. I pay for her to attend a private school, and she was thriving socially and academically. But she started coming back from weekends with me and wouldn't listen to her parents for the first few days of the week. By the time Mia felt Sophia was following rules, it was time for my weekend, and the cycle repeated. Mia has admitted she's jealous of my bond with Sophia and my ability to provide for her financially. She says I spoil Sophia, and I'll admit I do. Sophia is my girl, and I want to give her the world. At home, she struggles with chores and screen time, but I've never had issues with her listening to me. I keep her busy with activities and limit screen time. Guilt. I feel guilty about Sophia calling me mom. She did for the first 3 years of her life. When Mia visited and heard it, she broke down, screaming and crying, asking how I could let Sophia think I was her mother. It scared and confused Sophia, and our parents decided she should call me something else. Update. Many have asked for an update. The past month has been chaotic. Mia gave birth, and I now have custody of all 3 children. After an emergency therapy session with Sophia, she revealed that Mia had been manipulating her, saying I never wanted her and only took her out of obligation. While it's true I was hesitant at first, I was in law school, broke, and overwhelmed. I grew to love Sophia deeply and always did what I thought was best for her. After the session, I filed for emergency custody, citing parental alienation and Mia's marijuana use, which violated her custody conditions. I requested a drug test and home visit, noting the house was a health hazard. I was granted custody, and CPS found drugs in the home, including fentanyl. Both Mia and her husband were arrested, and I took in their newborn as well. I made a deal with Mia. She gave up parental rights in exchange for me paying her bail and legal fees. I now have full custody of Sophia and her brothers and am filing for adoption. Sophia is thriving, and while adjusting to life with 3 kids is challenging, I know it's the right decision. Edit. Many are concerned about Mia having more children. It's unlikely. She had Sophia because she believed she couldn't get pregnant due to having one ovary removed as a teen. After multiple C-sections and complications during her last delivery, her doctor said it's very unlikely she'll have more children. Relevant comments on law school. I finished law school almost 7 years ago. I worked as an ADA and now practice criminal defense, occasionally taking family law cases. I'm pursuing a certification in international law, but will consider my kids in any career moves. Have your parents weighed in? My parents and I are taking a break. They were upset when I filed for custody, believing Mia had turned her life around. They haven't reached out since, and I'm giving it time. I'm overwhelmed and don't want to say anything I might regret. I agreed to my wife for an open relationship, but she got jealous while I stayed calm and went along with it. It was a Tuesday evening, and the sun was setting, casting a warm orange glow over the city. Amelia and I sat on our balcony, sipping wine and enjoying the quiet hum of the streets below. We had been together for 5 years, and our relationship was comfortable. Too comfortable, Amelia thought. She twirled her glass, the wine swirling like her thoughts. Caleb, she began, her voice hesitant. I've been thinking about us. I raised an eyebrow, setting my glass down. Uh-oh, that sounds serious. Amelia laughed nervously. It's not bad. I mean, I don't think it's bad, but what if we tried something different, like an open relationship? I blinked. An open relationship, like seeing other people? Yeah, Amelia said, her words tumbling out now. I mean, we love each other, right? But what if we explored other connections, just to keep things fresh? I leaned back in my chair, my expression unreadable. Amelia's heart raced. Was I mad? Disgusted? But then I smiled, a slow, calm smile that made her stomach flip. Okay, I said simply. Okay, Amelia repeated, surprised. Just like that. I shrugged. Why not? If it's something you want to try, I'm open to it. Literally. Amelia laughed, relief flooding her. Wow, I thought you'd freak out. Nah, I said, taking a sip of my wine. Life's too short to freak out about everything. The next few days were a whirlwind of conversations and negotiations. We set rules. No one we knew, always used protection. And no bringing people back to our apartment. We even made a shared Google Doc to keep track of our adventures, which Amelia found oddly hilarious. Rule number 4, Amelia read aloud, typing on her laptop. No falling in love. That's a big one. I nodded, lounging on the couch. Yeah, that's important. We're not trying to replace each other. Just Amelia smirked. Supplement, that's one way to put it. We spent hours discussing boundaries, fears, and expectations. Amelia was surprised by how calm I was about the whole thing. She had expected some resistance, maybe even a little jealousy, but I seemed fine, almost too fine. Amelia's first date was with a guy named Mark, a graphic designer she met at a coffee shop. He was charming, funny, and exactly the kind of person she wouldn't normally go for. It was thrilling. Meanwhile, I stayed home binge-watching a new series. When Amelia returned, she found me sprawled on the couch, a bowl of popcorn in my lap. How was it? I asked, not even looking up from the TV. Amelia hesitated. It was good, really good. I nodded. Cool. Glad you had fun. Amelia frowned. That was it. No questions. No curiosity. She had expected at least a little tension, but I was as calm as ever. A week later, I went on my first date. Amelia tried to act nonchalant, but as soon as I left, she felt a knot of anxiety in her stomach. She texted her best friend, Sarah. Amelia, he's on his first date. Why am I freaking out? Sarah, because you're human. It's normal to feel weird about this stuff. Amelia, but he was so chill when I went out. Why can't I be like that? Sarah, maybe he's just better at hiding it. When I returned, Amelia was sitting on the couch, pretending to read a book. How was it? She asked, trying to sound casual. I shrugged. It was fine. She was nice. Amelia waited for more, but I just grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat down next to her. The silence was deafening. Over the next few weeks, Amelia went on several more dates, each one leaving her more conflicted. She enjoyed the excitement, but my calm demeanor was starting to grate on her. Why wasn't I jealous? Did I even care? One night after another date, Amelia came home to find me cooking dinner. The smell of garlic and herbs filled the apartment. How was your night? I asked, stirring a pot of pasta. Amelia sighed. It was fine. But Caleb, can we talk? I turned off the stove and faced her. Sure. What's up? Amelia hesitated. I feel like you're not really invested in this. Like you don't care what I do. I frowned. Of course I care. I just trust you. Isn't that the point? Amelia shook her head. I don't know. Maybe I just expected more of a reaction from you. I sighed. Amelia, I'm not going to pretend to be jealous if I'm not. That's not fair to either of us. The tension between us grew, simmering just below the surface. Amelia found herself picking fights over little things, trying to provoke a reaction from me. But I remained calm, always calm. One night, after a particularly heated argument, Amelia snapped. Why don't you ever get mad? She shouted. Why don't you ever fight for us? I looked at her, my expression unreadable. Amelia, I'm not going to fight with you just because you want me to. That's not healthy. Amelia felt tears welling up in her eyes. I feel like you don't care. I stepped closer, my voice soft. I care, Amelia. I care more than you know. But I'm not going to play games with you. If this isn't working for you, we need to talk about it. We sat down that night, the air thick with unspoken words. Amelia took a deep breath. I think I made a mistake, she admitted. I thought an open relationship would bring us closer, but it's just made me feel more distant. I nodded. I get that. But Amelia, this was your idea. I went along with it because I thought it was what you wanted. Amelia sighed. I thought it was what I wanted to, but now, I don't know. I reached for her hand. Maybe we need to take a step back. Reassess what we really want. Amelia looked at me, her heart aching. Do you still want this? Us. I smiled softly. I've always wanted us, Amelia. I just want us to be happy. We decided to close our relationship, at least for now. It wasn't an easy decision, but it felt right. We spent the next few weeks reconnecting, talking, and rediscovering what we loved about each other. One evening, as we sat on the balcony again, Amelia turned to me. Thank you, she said quietly. I raised an eyebrow. For what? For being you, Amelia replied. For being calm when I was freaking out. For not giving up on us. I smiled, pulling her close. I'll always be here, Amelia, no matter what. And for the first time in a long time, Amelia felt truly at peace. Months later, Amelia and I were stronger than ever. We had learned a lot about ourselves and each other. And while our experiment with an open relationship hadn't gone as planned, it had brought us closer in the end. As we sat on our balcony, watching the sunset, Amelia turned to me. "Hey Caleb, thanks for not being jealous." I laughed. "Thanks for not giving up on me." And as the sun dipped below the horizon, we knew we had found our way back to each other, and that was all that mattered. I forced my parents to confront their bias as I became a world-class artist. The Whitaker household was a place of stark contrasts. On one side, there was Olivia, the golden child, whose every achievement was celebrated with fanfare. On the other side, there was me, the forgotten child, whose talents and interests were often overlooked. From a young age, Olivia excelled in everything she did. She was the star of the school plays, the captain of the debate team, and the valedictorian of her class. Our parents, Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker, doted on her, their pride evident in every photograph that adorned the walls of our home. I, on the other hand, was the quiet one. While Olivia basked in the spotlight, I found solace in my sketchbook. Drawing was my escape, my way of expressing the emotions I couldn't put into words. But to my parents, it was just a hobby, a frivolous pastime that paled in comparison to Olivia's accomplishments. "Lucian, why don't you join the soccer team like Olivia?" my father would often say, his tone tinged with disappointment. "It's a great way to make friends." I would nod, but my heart wasn't in it. Soccer wasn't my passion. Art was. But no matter how many sketches I showed them, no matter how many awards I won at school art competitions, my parents never seemed to notice. One evening, as I sat in my room, sketching by the dim light of my desk lamp, Olivia burst in, her face flushed with excitement. "Lucian, guess what?" she exclaimed, waving a piece of paper in her hand. "I got accepted into Harvard." I forced a smile, my heart sinking. "That's great, Olivia. Congratulations." My parents rushed in, their faces beaming with pride. "Our little girl, going to Harvard," my mother gushed, pulling Olivia into a tight hug. "We're so proud of you." I watched from the sidelines, my sketchbook forgotten on my desk. It was always like this, Olivia's achievements overshadowing everything else. I felt invisible, my own dreams and aspirations buried under the weight of her success. That night, as I lay in bed, I made a decision. I would prove to my parents that I was more than just a forgotten child. I would show them that my art was not just a hobby, it was my passion, my talent, my future. I threw myself into my art with a newfound determination. I spent hours perfecting my technique, experimenting with different mediums, and pushing the boundaries of my creativity. I entered every art competition I could find, determined to make a name for myself. But it wasn't easy. My parents' indifference was a constant source of frustration. They barely acknowledged my efforts. Their attention always focused on Olivia. "Lucian, why don't you focus on something practical?" my father would say, his tone dismissive. "Art won't pay the bills." I bit back my frustration, my resolve hardening. I would prove them wrong. I would show them that my art was worth something. My big break came unexpectedly. I entered a national art competition, submitting a piece that I had poured my heart and soul into. It was a portrait of our family, but with a twist. Olivia was in the foreground, bathed in light, while I was in the background, shrouded in shadows. To my astonishment, I won first place. The judges praised my work for its emotional depth and technical skill, and I was invited to showcase my art at a prestigious gallery in New York City. I couldn't believe it. This was my chance to prove myself, to show my parents that my art was more than just a hobby. I arrived home, my heart pounding with excitement. I couldn't wait to share the news with my parents. But as I walked through the door, I was met with the usual indifference. "Lucian, where have you been?" my mother asked, her tone distracted. "Olivia just called. She's coming home for the weekend." I took a deep breath, my excitement fading. "Mom, Dad, I have something to tell you." They turned to me, their expressions blank. "What is it, Lucian?" my father asked, his tone impatient. "I won first place in a national art competition," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "I'm going to showcase my art in New York City." There was a moment of silence, and then my father sighed. "That's nice, Lucian, but don't let it distract you from your studies. Art won't pay the bills." I felt a surge of anger, but I bit it back. "This is important to me, Dad. It's my passion." My mother gave me a sympathetic smile. "We're happy for you, Lucian, but you have to be realistic. Art is a tough field." I clenched my fists, my frustration boiling over. "Why can't you just be proud of me? Why is it always about Olivia?" My parents exchanged a glance, their expressions unreadable. "Lucian, we love you," my mother said, her tone gentle, "but we just want what's best for you." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "What's best for me is to follow my passion. And if you can't see that, then maybe you don't really know me at all." The day of the exhibition arrived, and I stood in the gallery, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and anxiety. The room was filled with people, their eyes scanning the artwork on display. I stood by my piece, a large canvas that depicted the struggles of the forgotten child. It was raw, emotional, and deeply personal, a reflection of my journey. As the guests admired my work, I felt a sense of validation. This was my moment, my chance to shine. But then, I saw them, my parents, standing in the corner of the room, their expressions unreadable. My heart sank. I hadn't expected them to come. I approached them, my nerves on edge. "Mom, Dad, I didn't think you'd be here." My father cleared his throat, his tone awkward. "We wanted to see what all the fuss was about." I nodded, my heart heavy. "Well, this is my work. This is what I've been working towards." My mother gave me a small smile. "It's different, but we're proud of you, Lucia." I felt a surge of emotion, but I bit it back. "Thank you." As the night went on, I noticed my parents lingering by my piece, their expressions thoughtful. I approached them, my heart pounding. "What do you think?" I asked, my voice tentative. My father sighed, his tone heavy with regret. "Lucian, we didn't realize how much this meant to you. We didn't realize how much we've overlooked you." I felt a lump in my throat, my emotions threatening to spill over. "It's not just about the art, Dad. It's about being seen, being valued." My mother reached out, her hand trembling as she touched my arm. "We're so sorry, Lucian. We didn't mean to make you feel this way." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "I just wanted you to be proud of me." My father pulled me into a hug, his voice choked with emotion. "We are proud of you, Lucian. We always have been. We didn't show it." The exhibition was a turning point for our family. My parents began to see me in a new light, their pride in my achievements growing with each passing day. Olivia too began to understand the impact of her success on me. She reached out, her tone filled with regret. "Lucian, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize how much my achievements overshadowed yours." I smiled, my heart lighter than it had been in years. "It's okay, Olivia. We're all learning." As I stood in the gallery, surrounded by my artwork and the people who loved me, I felt a sense of peace. I had finally found my place in the world, and I knew that my parents were proud of me. Years passed, and my art continued to gain recognition. I became a world-famous artist, my work celebrated for its emotional depth and technical skill. My parents, too, had changed. They became my biggest supporters, their pride in my achievements evident in every conversation. As I stood before my latest piece, a portrait of our family, this time with all of us in the foreground, bathed in light, I felt a sense of closure. I had honored my journey. I sabotaged my boss's presentation after being passed over for a promotion and discovered she stole my work, then confronted her. It was supposed to be my big break. I had been working at Crestline Marketing for 5 years, climbing the ladder one rung at a time. I'd put in the late nights, the weekends, the endless hours of brainstorming and strategizing. I'd earned my stripes, and everyone knew it. So when the position of senior marketing manager opened up, I was sure it was mine for the taking. I'd spent weeks preparing for the interview. I'd polished my resume, rehearsed my answers, and even bought a new suit. I was ready. But then, the unthinkable happened. I was sitting at my desk, nervously tapping my pen against the keyboard, when my boss, Linda, walked into the office. She had that look on her face, the one that said she was about to drop a bombshell. "Hey Alex," she said, leaning against my desk. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" I nodded, my heart pounding. "Sure, Linda. What's up?" She took a deep breath. "I wanted to let you know that we've made a decision about the senior marketing manager position." I felt a surge of hope. "Oh," and she hesitated, and that's when I knew something was wrong. "We've decided to go with someone else." I blinked stunned. "What? Who? Emily?" I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Emily. Emily was a junior associate who'd been with the company for less than a year. She was good, sure, but she wasn't ready for a senior position. Not like I was. "Emily," I repeated, my voice shaking. "But why?" Linda sighed. "Look, Alex, you're a great employee, but we felt that Emily brought a fresh perspective to the table. She's got a lot of potential, and we think she's the right fit for the role." I stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. It didn't make sense. I'd worked so hard, sacrificed so much, and for what? To be passed over for someone who hadn't even earned their stripes yet. "Alex," Linda said, snapping me out of my thoughts. "Are you okay?" I forced a smile. Yeah, I'm fine. "Congratulations to Emily." Linda nodded, looking relieved. "Thanks, Alex. I knew you'd understand." She walked away, leaving me sitting there, my mind racing. I felt a mix of emotions, anger, frustration, betrayal, but mostly, I felt numb. Over the next few days, I tried to put on a brave face. I congratulated Emily, even though it killed me inside. I went to the team meeting where Linda announced her promotion, clapping along with everyone else, but inside I was seething. I couldn't understand why I'd been passed over. I'd done everything right, worked hard, delivered results, gone above and beyond, and yet, it wasn't enough. Then, one night, as I was going through some old files on my computer, I found something that made my blood boil. It was a presentation I'd put together months ago, a detailed marketing strategy for a new client. I'd spent weeks on it, pouring my heart and soul into every slide. But when I presented it to Linda, she'd shot it down, saying it wasn't innovative enough. But now, as I looked at the slides, I realized something. They were almost identical to the presentation Emily had given at the team meeting earlier that week. I felt a surge of anger. She'd stolen my work. She'd taken my ideas, my hard work, and passed them off as her own, and Linda had rewarded her for it. I sat there, staring at the screen, my mind racing. This wasn't just about the promotion anymore. This was about justice. I spent the next few days plotting my revenge. I knew I couldn't just confront Linda or Emily, they'd deny it, and I'd be the one who looked bad. No, I needed to be smart about this. I started by gathering evidence. I dug through my old emails, looking for any correspondence about the presentation. I found the original draft I'd sent to Linda, along with her feedback. It was all there, in black and white. Next, I waited for the right moment. I knew Linda was scheduled to give a big presentation to the company's executives in a few weeks. It was her chance to shine, to prove she was worthy of her position, and I was going to make sure she failed. The day of the presentation arrived, and I was ready. I'd spent the night before making a few adjustments to Linda's slides. Nothing too obvious, just enough to throw her off her game. I sat in the back of the conference room, watching as Linda set up her laptop. She looked confident, like she had everything under control. But I knew better. She started her presentation, and at first, everything seemed fine. But then, about halfway through, things started to go wrong. The first slide that popped up was one of mine, the one Linda had rejected months ago. She paused, looking confused, but quickly moved on. Then, the next slide appeared. It was another one of mine, but this time, it was accompanied by a glaring typo, one I'd added just for fun. Linda stumbled over her words, trying to recover, but the damage was done. The executives were whispering to each other, clearly unimpressed. By the time she reached the end of the presentation, Linda was a mess. She was sweating, her voice was shaking, and she could barely get through her closing remarks. I sat there trying to hide my smile. It was perfect. After the presentation, Linda stormed out of the conference room, looking furious. I followed her, knowing what was coming next. She turned to me, her face red with anger. "What the hell was that, Alex? Did you mess with my slides?" I feigned innocence. "What are you talking about, Linda? I didn't touch your slides. Don't lie to me. Those were your slides." "I know it." I shrugged. "Well, maybe if you hadn't stolen my work in the first place, this wouldn't have happened." She stared at me, her eyes wide. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the evidence of the emails, the drafts, everything. "You passed over me for a promotion, and then you let Emily take credit for my work. How do you think that makes me feel?" Linda looked stunned. "Alex, I had no idea." "Of course you didn't," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm, "because you never bothered to listen to me. You just took my ideas and gave them to someone else." She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Look, Alex, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. I didn't mean to save it." "Linda," I interrupted, "the damage is done. But maybe now you'll think twice before you screw someone over." I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there speechless. The next few weeks were interesting. Linda tried to apologize, but I wasn't having it. I'd made my point, and that was all that mattered. As for Emily, she was demoted back to her old position. It turned out she'd been stealing ideas from other people too, and once the truth came out, no one wanted to work with her. And me, well, let's just say I got a promotion after all. Not the one I'd originally wanted, but a new position, one where I could finally have a say in the company's direction. It wasn't the way I'd planned it. But sometimes, you have to take matters into your own hands, because if you don't stand up for yourself, who will? It's been a year since the stolen promotion incident, and things are finally looking up. I've got a new office, a new title, and a new sense of confidence. And as for Linda, well, let's just say she's learned her lesson. Because in the end, karma always finds a way to balance the scales. I tricked my greedy friend into thinking we have won the lottery, then reveled it's a prank. After he quitted his job, it all started on a lazy Sunday afternoon. I was sitting on my couch, scrolling through my phone, when I got a text from my so-called best friend, Jake. "Hey man, you free tonight? Let's grab some beers," the message read. I sighed. Well, Jake, we've been friends since high school, but over the years, he'd become, let's just say, difficult. He was the kind of guy who always had a scheme, always looking for the next big thing to make him rich. And if that meant stepping on a few toes or outright screwing people over, so be it. I typed back, "Sure, why not? Same place as usual." "Yeah, see you at 8, he replied. I put my phone down and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Jake had been getting on my nerves lately. Last week, he'd borrowed $200 from me, promising to pay it back by the end of the month. But I knew better. Jake never paid anyone back. He always had an excuse: his car broke down, his dog needed surgery, blah blah blah. And if you pressed him, he'd just laugh it off like it was no big deal. But this time, I'd had enough. I was tired of being his personal ATM. I wanted to teach him a lesson, but I didn't know how. That's when the idea hit me. What if I tricked him into thinking we'd won the lottery? It was perfect. Jake was always talking about how he was going to win the lottery one day, how he was going to quit his job and live the high life. If I could make him believe it had actually happened, maybe he'd finally see how ridiculous he was being. I spent the next few hours planning it out. I'd need a fake lottery ticket, a convincing story, and a way to make sure Jake fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. By the time I left for the bar, I had everything ready. The bar was packed when I got there. Jake was already at our usual table, nursing a beer and scrolling through his phone. He looked up when he saw me and grinned. "Hey man, took you long enough," he said, clapping me on the back. I forced a smile and sat down. Yeah, traffic was a nightmare. We ordered a couple of beers and started chatting about nothing in particular, work, sports, the usual. But I could tell Jake was distracted. He kept glancing at his phone like he was waiting for something. "So," I said, leaning in, "I've got some news." Jake's eyes lit up. "Oh yeah, what's up?" I pulled out the fake lottery ticket and slid it across the table. "Remember that lottery pool we did last week? Well, I checked the numbers this morning, and we won." Jake's jaw dropped. "No way, you're kidding, right?" I shook my head, trying to keep a straight face. "Nope, we won $50 million. Jake stared at the ticket, his eyes wide. "Holy crap, this is insane." I could see the wheels turning in his head. He was already imagining all the things he was going to buy, the cars, the houses, the vacations. It was almost too easy. "But here's the thing," I said, lowering my voice. "We need to keep this quiet for now. If word gets out, we'll have every scammer and long-lost relative crawling out of the woodwork." Jake nodded eagerly. Yeah, of course. We gotta be smart about this." I could tell he was already planning his next move. He was going to quit his job, no doubt about it. And that was exactly what I wanted. Over the next few days, Jake was like a kid on Christmas morning. He couldn't stop talking about all the things he was going to do with his share of the money. He even started looking at luxury cars online, sending me links to Ferraris and Lamborghinis. "Check this one out," he said, showing me a picture of a bright red sports car. "Can you imagine pulling up to the club in this bad boy?" I forced a laugh. Yeah, that'd be something. But inside I was starting to feel a little guilty. Jake was really buying into this, and I knew it was going to crush him when he found out the truth. But then I remembered all the times he'd screwed me over, and the guilt faded. A week later, Jake called me, his voice shaking with excitement. "Hey man, I did it. I quit my job." I froze. "Wait, what?" "Yeah, I told my boss to shove it. I'm done with that place. I'm a millionaire now, right? I don't need to work anymore." I could hear the grin in his voice, and I felt a pang of guilt again, but I pushed it aside. "Wow, Jake, that's great," I said, trying to sound enthusiastic. "Yeah, I'm thinking about taking a trip to Vegas." "You and..." I hesitated. Maybe, let's talk about it later." "Okay, sure. Talk to you later, man." I hung up and sat back, my mind racing. This was it. The moment of truth. I had to tell him the truth before things got out of hand. I called Jake the next day and asked him to meet me at the bar again. He sounded excited, like he thought we were going to celebrate or something. When I got there, he was already at the table, a big grin on his face. "Hey man, what's up? You ready to start spending some of that cash?" I took a deep breath and sat down. "Jake, there's something I need to tell you." His smile faltered. "What is it?" I pulled out the fake lottery ticket and placed it on the table. This isn't real. We didn't win the lottery." Jake stared at me, his face going pale. "What are you talking about?" "I made it up. It was a prank. I wanted to teach you a lesson." Jake's eyes narrowed. "You're kidding, right? This is some kind of joke." I shook my head. "No, Jake, it's not a joke. I'm sorry." For a moment he just sat there, staring at me. Then his face turned red, and he slammed his fist on the table. "You son of a bitch. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I quit my job. I told everyone I know that I won the lottery. I'm ruined." I tried to stay calm. "Jake, I'm sorry, but you needed to learn a lesson. You can't just keep screwing people over and expect everything to work out." He stood up, his fists clenched. "Do you think this is funny? You think this is some kind of game?" I stood up too, ready for whatever was coming. "No joke, I don't think it's funny. But maybe now you'll think twice before you screw someone over." He glared at me for a moment, then turned and stormed out of the bar. The next few days were tense. Jake didn't talk to me, and I didn't try to reach out. I knew he needed time to cool off. But then, a week later, I got a call from him. "Hey," he said, his voice quiet. "Can we talk?" I hesitated. "Yeah, sure. What's up?" "I need your help. I don't know what to do. I quit my job and now I can't pay my rent. I'm a mess." I felt a pang of guilt again, but I also felt a little vindicated. Maybe now he'd finally understand. "Jake, I'm sorry. I didn't want this to happen. But maybe now you'll see that you can't just keep taking from people without giving anything back." He was silent for a moment. "Yep, I guess you're right. I don't know what to do." I sighed. "Look, I'll help you out. But you need to promise me something. Anything. Stop being such a jerk. Start treating people better. And for God's sake, pay back the money you owe." He laughed, a little bitterly. "Yeah, okay. I promise." And just like that, it was over. Jake learned his lesson, and while I learned that sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind. It's been a few months since the lottery prank, and things are better. Jake got a new job, and he's been making an effort to be a better friend. He even paid me back the $200 he owed me. But every now and then, I catch him looking at lottery tickets, and I can't help but smile. He's learned his lesson. But some habits die hard. And as for me, well, let's just say I've learned that revenge is a dish best served with a fake lottery ticket. What do I say to my 4'5" FBF 44M who doesn't seem to realize he's just broken up with me? I've been dating my boyfriend for about a year. When I met him, he had separated from his wife and they were going through a divorce 8 months after separation. I don't usually date men who are only separated, but we just clicked. One thing I've asked from the beginning is whether or not he wants to have more kids because I'm child-free for medical reasons. He's always said he wasn't bothered either way. The relationship with his children is very strained and they don't like going to see him. Now the divorce is complete. I've warned him that the heel spiral, having had friends go through the same thing, which is usually why I don't date men in this period. But he was adamant he was going to be fine. He isn't. He's totally spiraling. I've suggested that he go back to therapy, but he doesn't want to. I've said not to just have these thoughts and feelings swirling around in his head and to talk if he needs to. He's started talking to me about his feelings and one of them is that he wants to have more kids. Now he said this in a stream of consciousness in a voice note. I'm on the waiting list for a hysterectomy. He's still texting as normal. How do I confront this? He doesn't really have anyone else to talk to. However, our relationship is basically over in my head now. Some of OOP's comments. Top comment. Sounds like you just need to be upfront and honest. Tell him he wants more kids and you can't give that to him. You have broken up with him in your head, not him breaking up with you. Oh, thank you for replying. I think a conversation definitely needs to be had. Commenter, sounds like you need to break up with him. It is a shame how men tend to end up lonely due to refusing to invest in a social support network. But alas, women can only do so much for men. Break up and let him rely on a therapist to handle this life crisis of his. I've been urging him to reach out to old friends, but he doesn't seem to have anyone to have these kinds of conversations with. The strained relationship with his kids, therapy. OOP, you are indeed wise. So the relationship with his kids seemed awesome when we met. Then, as the divorce arrangements picked up steam, they started having a bit more attitude and asking questions about finances that I wouldn't expect from children. When I met, he was in therapy, so I'm baffled as to why he's so against it now. It was actually one of the reasons I decided to see where this goes. We've had very frank discussions about the breakdown of his marriage, and he has accepted what he believes is his part in being from the same place as his wife. I could see things I would also find hard to deal with. Getting an outside view would be hard because his family are on his side. He's staying with his sister and they have been arguing because when his kids are being rude, she's trying to correct them and he's asking her not to. Commenter, since you've had friends go through divorce, you know that some of the things people say in this major transition are just thoughts, words. It's really important IMO for people going through divorce to get therapy. You can't assume he realizes the implications of his You can certainly point it out. If you want kids, that would mean we're incompatible. Not sure if you're just having thoughts or if you're expressing actual intentions. Thank you for reminding me of this. It's a lot harder to remember when you're directly involved. What I don't want is for him to say what he thinks I want to hear so that he still has me around. Commenter, could it have been a statement made in a spiral? Is it possible that the emotional complexities are deeper than a metaphorical shot across the bow? It seems like a simple conversation to reaffirm your choices is the next step. Perhaps he's truly interested in having more kids, in which case the relationship is done. I wouldn't call it a healthy process to check out without talking first. OOP, I believe it was. Because I got another text this morning saying that he doesn't want to have any more now. Commenter, does he realize that you actually don't want any kids? I am assuming this because you did not even mention it in your post. Because there are other options like adopting. Oh yes, it is one of the first things I ask so as not to waste time. With my medical conditions I wouldn't adopt. It wouldn't be fair. To another commenter, I have other health conditions. And I don't think it's fair for children to have a parent who they will end up having to look after. I was that child, and that isn't a childhood. To a longer comment, wow, you've written much more succinctly what I've been thinking. Honestly, up until yesterday, his values aligned with mine. We had very frank and open discussions about the breakdown of his marriage and how he contributed to that. He was in therapy. His visits with his kids were, from his description, great. He always puts them first and ensures he plans something they both enjoy as they both enjoy different things. I've had some health issues and he's taken care of me, challenged me to get up and about again. He's also thoughtful. He's not perfect by any means, but I do enjoy his company. As the divorce arrangements started to get hashed out, his children started asking questions that you wouldn't hear from a child. His ex asked him not to discuss anything with them, but the questions showed they were hearing something from somewhere. When the eldest said he was horrible for just walking out without saying goodbye, he corrected her and said it didn't happen that way. Obviously they went back and asked their mum because she ripped into him and then didn't let him see them for 3 weeks. Then their attitudes started changing. Now I'm well aware I'm only hearing one side. But the difference between the visits even up to 6 months ago and now are very stark. Update post. Thanks for the answers. I replied to as many as I could, but eventually it got a bit repetitive. To those who never saw my replies and have the same questions, his kids were happy to see him when we met. But as the divorce became more acrimonious, they started to say things that in my mind, children wouldn't typically say. If he had said anything about his children not wanting to see him when we first started dating, that would have been a red flag for me. Helping a friend through a divorce and listening to them go through various ideas is very different to the person you see doing it, especially when they are talking about things that means the end of the relationship. Anyway, on to the update. We met up and I asked him if he was aware that he said he thinks he wants to have more kids. He said yes, it's a possibility. I said, you're aware that I'm on the waiting list for a hysterectomy? He said yes. I said, so you're aware that this essentially means we're over? He said, it doesn't have to mean that. We can continue to see each other until I make up my mind. I nearly fell off my chair. I stared at him and realized that he actually never knew me at all. Anyone who knows me knows I would never put up with this foolishness. I actually laughed and said, you want me to continue to see you while you decide whether or not you want kids, and then if you do, I should just meekly walk away. Does that sound like that's fair? He said no, but he loves being with me and doesn't want to lose me. I told him I was lost the minute he told me he might want more kids. I said I appreciate him telling me the truth, but the consequence of that means we're over. I told him what I'd have told a friend: sort out your relationship with the children you have before making new ones, and gave him a book on that subject. I left and cried. I'm going to miss him a lot. He's been texting, but I may block him soon.